Hey guys, just to be advised, this video does cover the topic of cyberbullying and death threats. So if you're sensitive to those topics, please click off now while you have the chance. Thank you. Hello guys, today I am going to talk about How to Train Your Dragon and why the trilogy isn't as perfect as people say it is, and how it began to fall off after the first movie. And I'm going to quote other people's opinions because I am very stupid, and excuse any stuttering I have. At first, I was afraid of people arguing in my comments or other people wanting to conform to their opinion in my comments, but then I realized that YouTube is basically crap now, and they're likely going to turn off my comments against my will, so I'm not too worried about that anymore. And on the topic of conforming to opinions, I've actually seen people try to do that, and it's not okay. I literally saw a short of somebody saying that the How to Train Your Dragon fandom needs to accept that Toothless is confirmed the last Night Fury. And if you personally believe that Toothless is the last Night Fury, that is perfectly fine. But don't shove it down other people's throats. Let people critically think about what they love and let them be creative, instead of just going whatever the big guys say. Not to mention, people who say that Toothless is the only one because it was confirmed aren't looking at the bigger picture. Let me explain what I mean real fast. I'm going to quote other people's opinions here. So, believe it or not, Valka, Hiccup's mother, was supposed to be the villain in How to Train Your Dragon 2, which, unquote, explains why the movie is so packed and convoluted, while the third one is so underwhelming and bare-boned. For me, I watched the second movie myself, and it was okay, but it felt a little fast-paced. And turning back to Toothless being the only one, that is what grinds my gears about this subject the most. Toothless being the last Night Fury. Personally, I don't believe Toothless is the last Night Fury, and I refuse to believe so, with solid evidence. Look at this picture closely. What do you notice? You notice how it says Night Fury instead of Toothless? The millisecond the second movie came out, they all started saying Toothless instead of Night Fury. And another piece of evidence is these extras that came with the first movie. Gobber's training videos, if I'm even pronouncing his name right, or got his name right at all. Look at this picture of the Night Fury very closely. What do you notice? There is no prosthetic tail. This definitely could not have been Toothless, because if that were the case, Hiccup and Toothless would have met in the arena instead of Raven Point or the forest. This Night Fury couldn't have been released either, because it would have been used for training the other Vikings. Not to mention, even if they did release it, that would be putting everybody in danger. And that's definitely the last thing the Vikings would want. I also like to believe that this Night Fury is a female and was captured and sent to another island other than Berk to train the Vikings to protect themselves against other dragons. And a person on said island does something similar to what Hiccup did and shows that the dragons aren't bad, they're just feeding and defending themselves. And said person bonds with the female Night Fury, and the female Night Fury accepts said person as her rider, and therefore safe from Grimmel. And therefore, all of this irrefutable evidence leads me to believe that Toothless was never intended to be the last Night Fury to begin with. And another thing I want to talk about is how Toothless becomes a literal dragon dictator. And I don't understand why the quote-unquote king of all dragons like, Toothless being chief of a certain group of dragons would make a whole lot more sense other than being king of every dragon. If that same logic applied to humans, we would riot because they would be considered a dictator. King of all dragons and every dragon in existence. You gotta be kidding me. Now, let's talk about the supposed Night Fury killer Grimmel for a second. I like to believe that Grimmel lied to Hiccup because he knew that his relationships and Hiccup himself were beginning to degrade personality and relationship-wise. And he decided to take advantage of this weak point to make the dragons and people split up for good, even if it costed him his life, in which he succeeded without Hiccup even realizing it. Not to mention, how believable is it that one guy killed off an entire population of Night Furies to near extinction? Like, imagine somebody dressed up all edgy, came up to you, and said, "I killed every tiger on planet Earth except one." How believable would that be? Like, let's just admit it. This guy is nothing but a product of corporate greed, and a very stale and forgettable villain, as quoted by other people. And it's because of this I say we don't have to listen to what the big guys tell us. We don't have to acknowledge the Light Fury's existence if we don't want to. And, of course, we don't have to believe that Toothless is the last Night Fury because we aren't entitled to. It's free will and critical thinking. And there was this one time I saw a guy on Pinterest, yes, I have Pinterest, upload a Toothless and Light Fury bloodline with, of course, Toothless's parents and Light Fury's parents, and also grandkids. And I went to the comments, and somebody either put an X or a question mark on the rest of the bloodline, except for Toothless, the Light Fury, Pouncer, Rough Runner, and Dart. And I just found that absolutely ridiculous. Like I said before, it is entirely okay to change stuff about and critically think about the stuff you love. And who are other people to say otherwise? And by change stuff about the things you love, I mean make headcanons. Because we can't change what the big guys put out. Unless they listen, of course. Like the Sonic situation, for example. For those who don't know, I'm going to make it short and sweet for you. When the first Sonic movie was released, people saw the first design and they hated it. And personally, I did too. Fortunately, the company listened to the fans, delayed the release, and fixed Sonic's design. Unfortunately, a situation like this is insanely rare because companies today now take their audience for a bunch of brain-dead idiots who take in whatever is given to them, and also, on top of that, see us as nothing but money bags. Now you guys may be wondering to yourself, why is Toothless being the only one grind your gears so much? It's not that big of a deal. Well, it grinds my gears because not only is it constantly shoved down your throat in the second movie and third movie, thanks Arrett and Grimmel, I was a victim of cyberbullying. Now, what does cyberbullying have to do with my situation, you ask? Well, when I was on Amino, I made a Night Fury character that was black with green eyes. And people left and right, head to toe, said, "This is Toothless, this is gender bent Toothless, this is Toothless, you're copying Tooth, blah, 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 blah." And of course, at the time, I didn't know these were trolls. And being the fool I was, I decided to fight back and say that my character was not Toothless, but people kept saying she was, which made me very angry. There was specifically this one time I was on voice chat during a school night, stupidly, and wanted to show off my art like a prideful little peacock. Specifically, art of my female Night Fury character. This one guy in the voice chat said my OC was toothless. I was like, no, it's not. We went back and forth, and I was whispering, trying not to get caught. And the way this guy said it's toothless, just, ooh. And of course, this could be a false memory, but I think there was this one time where I was arguing with a guy and he said that Toothless was the last Night Fury. Of course, there is a lot more to my being cyberbullied iceberg than this. I was a preteen back when I was cyberbullied. People were making very rude comments about my art, and I was told things a preteen should not be told. Do not cyberbully, because you do not know the effects you are leaving on the person you are cyberbullying. Actually, scratch that. Don't bully at all, because it could lead to permanent consequences that you cannot undo. And once a person is dead because of you, that sticks with you for the rest of your life. And it will come back to bite you. Trust me. I'm gonna get a little religious here. In the Bible, God says to those who mock him, you reap what you sow. And what he means is, if you mock, you're going to be mocked. And if you hate, you're going to be hated. So please, be kind to others, for we are all fighting our hard battles. And if you're going through some stuff, please don't resort to hate and reach out for help. I promise you, hate won't solve anything. It'll only spread it. Let's move on. Anyways, I hated How to Train Your Dragon for years as a result of being cyberbullied. I dreaded seeing Toothless's face. I dreaded that toothless smile and the sight of that red prosthetic tail. Every time I saw it, I wanted to roll my eyes into another dimension. Thankfully, I have healed from this past trauma, and I love the first How to Train Your Dragon. And I pretend the rest of this mess of a trilogy does not exist. And yes, I don't hate How to Train Your Dragon anymore. If I did, I wouldn't be making this video. Now let's talk about How to Train Your Dragon 3: The Hidden World. This movie was the straw that broke the camel's back. Literally tossing the message it stood for under the bus and saying, screw it, all the Night Furies are dead, Toothless is the last one, and everyone doesn't have their dragons anymore. Cry about it, give us your money. There is complaint after complaint about this movie. Scratch that. I wouldn't say complaint, more like critique. People critiqued this movie so hard. Like Toothless being completely out of character and acting like a dog. And also his design unnecessarily changing. Not only Toothless's design unnecessarily changed, the other characters were redesigned too. Noticeably Valka. Like, it is so uncomfortably noticeable. Like, what is this? Like, this redesign did not need to happen. She was completely fine the way she was. Not to mention, if you look really closely, Toothless does not have his neck scar anymore. Nobody has their scars anymore. I also saw somebody talk about how there was this baby skin trend going on in the DreamWorks movies, where everybody is getting smooth, plasticky, doll skin, and Illumination is to blame for this because they bought DreamWorks, I think. There was also this critique on how the Light Fury's design was painfully misogynistic, and she was solely meant to be feminine, nothing more. Just one word, female, point blank, end period, bottom line. I really wish this was a matter of opinion, but it's not. It is specifically stated in the art book that she was designed to be feminine and nothing else. And it's so weird too, because not only did the director confirm that the female Night Furies were identical to the males, meaning that if there was a female Night Fury here, she would look super identical to Toothless. And Stormfly and Meatlug are literally female. And do you see them with super smooth skin and sleek features? No. I've also saw arguments saying that Toothless losing his markings was like a fawn losing their spots. But the thing is, if that were the case, why doesn't his kids have them?
I'm going to continue this in text-to-speech, because I want to finish this by tonight and before I forget lols. Also, I saw someone defending the Light Fury's design, saying that Stormfly had a heart on her chest. Like where? Not to mention, if you said anything, and I mean one small bad thing about this movie, you would be called How to Train Your Dragon to fanboy or girl for it, like it was a bad thing, when in reality it's not. Or you would just be ignored and swept under the rug. I also find it incredibly weird how they don't acknowledge the rest of the world, like everything revolved around them. Not Russia, not China, no one else is mentioned. And it would actually make sense if Night Furies were extinct in Berk alone instead of extinct as a whole. And some people even said that adding another Night Fury wouldn't be creative and would be lazy. Like, that's what the people wanted. It's not lazy to listen to fans. It's honestly amazing how backwards some people's beliefs are. The best way I can describe this trilogy is going to a hibachi grill, going home with gourmet leftovers, and when you reheat it the first time it's okay, but the third time it's stale and not good anymore.
I know I said I was going to continue the rest of the video with text-to-speech, but I figured I'd use my actual voice to express my emotion with this last bit. Everything that DreamWorks has done has caused so much division within the How to Train Your Dragon fandom and or community. And it's extremely angering and frustrating because it has affected so many people, including me, in a not so good way. I even saw a comment about how somebody took their kids to see The Hidden World, How to Train Your Dragon, The Hidden World, and they came out crying and confused on why they had to live without dragons again. And it's extremely hilarious and sad because even the kids see the flaws in this movie. How do you feel about your own target audience disagreeing with you, DreamWorks? Anyways, that'll be all. I just figured I'd go ahead and speak my mind and make this video to show people who have been through the same thing and or feel the same way that they're not alone in the matter. So if YouTube miraculously leaves the comments on, you can go ahead and leave a comment if you want. Disagree, agree, whichever. And like and subscribe if you want. And let's hope YouTube doesn't whine about me using certain images.